Good evening, drone people. Tonight we are going to take a look at my Holy Stone HS720e that got wrecked in a flight. About 5 or 6 days after I got it, I was flying it at a park. I took off from one spot, I flew it kind of through the park, around the trunks of trees, no problem. I still had plenty of battery left, flew it way up in the air, did like a 360, just looking around the area on the camera. Next thing I know, the low battery alarm sounds and the thing took off like a rocket. Now, past times when I'd flown it, if I had the low battery alarm go off, I still had plenty of time to land the drone and recover it, no big deal. It was like this time, the second it went off, this thing just flew away and it was gone. And the direction it was taking off, I believe it was trying to return to home, but there was tall trees in between where I was at and where it had originally taken off from. So when it took off like a rocket, with no obstacle avoidance detection on the drone, it just flew into a tall tree, probably about a 150-foot tall tree, give or take. Hit the top, and then luckily it did follow it all the way to the bottom. It probably hit about 10 branches on the way down and landed with a thud, and it was still running. When I hit the ground, a couple of the blades were still trying to spin, and then I couldn't even shut the darn thing off. I finally had to pull the battery out of it. Picked it up. I had this one arm completely broken off, just dangling by the wire. I've got a motor that snapped off, and it's dangling by the wire as well. All 8 of the props survived. The cover came loose, so you can see inside. The screws, there's little screws here and on the other side. It looks like they ripped right out of the holes that holds them in place. So I'm gonna attempt to repair this thing. I've been thinking about how I'm gonna go about doing that. This motor that came off, I know I can use a good strong 2-part epoxy and I can just hold that into place. I can get to all the edges and I think I can apply enough epoxy to get that back solid. The big challenge, well, and the top is gonna be easy. I'm just gonna take the screws out, the little screws, and I'm gonna put the top back down and then put the screws back through. I'm not gonna trust that enough though, but I don't wanna glue the top down since it's made to be open in case it ever needs to be open, and epoxy's strong stuff. So I'm gonna end up using some packing tape, which is clear and pretty strong stuff, and I'm gonna apply it a couple places to hold it down. It shouldn't add really any kind of weight to it, but it should be enough between the screws and the packing tape to hold the cover closed. The big challenge is gonna be this arm over here. And if I ever want this thing, I could make it a fixed arm so that it wouldn't fold. That would be the easiest to do that, but I don't want that because then it won't fit in the case anymore. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I can put the arm back together. It's not a clean break, but I can fit it back together. But right across this seam here, where it's broken at, I'm gonna glue with epoxy a piece of popsicle stick. So that shouldn't really increase the weight too much. It should be okay. A popsicle stick's pretty light, but it'll give it some strength. So that hopefully when I glue the popsicle stick on there with the epoxy and it hardens up, that I'll be able to still fold the arm back and forth like it's intended, and then hit epoxy all the way around the other sides. If you look, it's open by design on this side, so I can't do a popsicle stick on both sides. And then really the big challenge is on the bottom where it's broken off. It's broken off pretty far back, and I gotta be very careful with the epoxy, that if I get epoxy on the frame of the drone, that it's gonna bond the arm to the frame, and then the arm's never gonna work again. It's gonna be fixed position, it won't be able to fold anymore. So my idea for that is I'm gonna use a razor blade and I'm gonna squirt it with some dry lube, Teflon lube, and I'm gonna slide it in there before I start using the epoxy. So then hopefully if any epoxy happens to get onto the razor blade, because that's providing a barrier between the plastic and also because it's gonna be covered in Teflon, that I'll just be able to pull that out after the epoxy dries and not having any issue with the epoxy sticking. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna angle the camera down so you're not looking at me, so you're actually looking at what's going on down here, and hopefully we can get this thing healed up and be able to give it a fly tomorrow, see if it still works or not. That's gonna be the big question. Okay, so I've got the drone set up here, got a little screwdriver, got popsicle stick, got one to stir the epoxy, and then I've got another one to cut up to use as bracing. I've got two different styles of razor blades, got some PB Blaster dry lube with Teflon to spray on one of the razor blades. I've got some quick set epoxy that I like, it dries clear. Got some packing tape, got some snips here in case I need to cut anything or cut off the popsicle stick. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I guess the first thing I'll do before I start using the glue is I'm gonna take these screws out on the sides so I can put the cover back down. Pretty tiny, so I wanna do it with the screw upwards so when it falls out, it doesn't fall on the ground. Okay, got that one out. Take the other one out. I'm gonna be really interested to see if this thing can fly successfully. I think all 4 motors were working. So now it's a matter of if I'm gonna have the stability and trying to put the cover back. All right, that side snapped in. Now we're gonna try to put this little screw back in place. These are tiny, tiny screws. Hopefully it sticks to the screwdriver. Okay, put this screw back in there. Hope that it holds. Put the other screw back in. But I don't have a lot of confidence in their strength. A little bit of tape up front to hold the top down. It's not going to be pretty, but I think that tape is going to be strong enough. It seems to hold it. We're going to need to epoxy this motor on. It fits up together pretty nicely when you pop it into place where it broke at. So as long as I slap enough epoxy on there all around the sides and on the bottom. Okay, I've mixed the epoxy up, 2-part epoxy, so you want to mix the 2 cylinders together and then stir it up real good. This is the quick set stuff. It dries awfully quickly. So first I'm going to put it on this motor over here. I'm going to try to well, we're just gonna have to see. All right, gonna set this thing down, let it dry overnight. Gonna check it out tomorrow, see if it flies. Okay, the drone has sat overnight, and let's check out how good the epoxy is dried. So it's nice and solid here. The big test I was worried about was if this arm was gonna get any epoxy inside there and not be able to fold. It folds cleanly. So mission accomplished there. Gonna test out where the break was. Putting a little pressure on it with my fingers. It's solid. It is not moving anywhere. And let's check out the one where I put epoxy on the motor that was broken off. Putting a little pressure on that. That's solid too. So the two epoxy jobs appear to be solid. The tape, while not pretty, also appears to be solid. I'm picking it up by the top cover, and it's not moving at all. So I think that the tape is doing its job too. So it still folds up just the way it should. I am going to put the battery in, and I'm going to give this thing a flight. See if the motors work. The props, they're all in acceptable condition. They're got a little dirt on them, little nicks, but there's no cuts. Nothing's really broken. Gonna put the batteries in, see how this thing flies. Take it from there, I suppose. We'll see. All right, YouTube and drone people. I've got the drone all put back together with epoxy and a popsicle stick, and I'm gonna fire this thing up, see if it flies. We're gonna see. I'm gonna put the GoPro on my head. If there's any catastrophic failures, that could be funny and interesting too. So we're gonna flip the camera around and see what happens. All right, we have liftoff. It's actually flying exactly the way it's supposed to. The gimbal's working. Okay. Well, we have success. Gonna bring it in for a landing. And that's that. Okay, epoxy and popsicle sticks worked. The drone is alive. I'm gonna take it out and do some more flying. Thanks for watching. We're at the powerhouse in Milford. Gonna fly up and around this thing. Take a look, see how it goes.